Welcome to CiviLNet. I'm Salpi Ghazarian. I'm the director of the USC Institute of Armenian Studies and the proud director of CiviLNet. And we are spending these weeks here in Yerevan watching the street, watching what happens to the future of this country as the people on the street have succeeded in securing the removal, the resignation of the prime minister who was president for 10 years. And now, between the government, the protesters, the protest leadership, as well as the citizenry, everyone is looking to see what happens, what comes next. And to help us understand that, we've invited, and are grateful he's accepted, Boris Navasardyan, who is president of the Yerevan Press Club, but also someone who's been active in civil society in Armenia's development since independence. Boris, thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a really simple question. Why do the protesters think that they still need to be in the street? What happened? Why is April 25 and on? What happened? Why are they in the street?
I think we have to divide the whole movement into two parts. The first part had only one very concrete target. It was Serge Sargsyan, who was not at all popular politician in Armenia, who was not enjoying public sympathy, but at the same time he managed to remain in power for some days after his 2 years, two presidential terms. This was not acceptable for many in Armenia, I think even within his own party.
You mean the staying in power?
Staying in a party. Just the party, of course, could not go against the general trends political, but the public should not tolerate that. And I think the leader of the movement, Nikol Pashinyan, very successfully used these moods. And I think even some people, some officials who are sitting in state buildings, they were disappointed with the situation and not participating actively in the process. They had sympathy towards the protest.
The protests.
Yes, the street because they, deep in their minds, they were hoping that everything will remain the same, but Serge Sargsyan will go. And someone more acceptable for them could come.
I don't want to break this line, but I think that for anybody who doesn't live in Armenia and hasn't seen this political machine become so rooted, will not understand what you said in passing. You said, of course, the party could not go against that political reality, so the people in the street had to. That's backwards. So how do you explain that?
I would explain that in the sense that, of course, in Armenia, we had a process of consolidation of authoritarian regime. And this authoritarian regime was covering all layers of the population, all layers of our people. And the first who was targeted by this trend were the state officials, were the political elite, and of course they were the most tolerant because they were thinking, okay, it's authoritarian regime, but we enjoy our lives, we still have our privileges, we do not like our leader, but we can live with it. While people in the street, they had different opinion because, first of all, I would say 95% of population Armenia is unhappy with this system, with what is happening. And as soon as they saw a chance to change it, when they saw the energy of the leaders of the movement, of the protest movement, they, step by step, not immediately, they were very cautious. During the first days of protest, we had maybe 10,000 people coming to the streets. But then, step by step, they saw that, okay, these guys have energy, these guys have self-confidence, we have to go after them. And especially youth, who did not, contrary to my generation or many other following generation, did not have periods when we lost. I mean, we had different attempts to change the system, which was coming, unfortunately, from the first years of independence and going deeper and deeper. So these young people did not face any defeat. They were not defeated. And at the same time, what was still not so bad in Armenia, that we have freedom of internet, we have freedom of assembly, and we have freedom of association. And this allowed these young people to feel like we have no problem to saying what we think. We do not have problems to come to rallies and participate and express our opinions. They felt themselves free, and this helped them to consolidate, to become active participants, not just coming and listening what the leaders are saying, but also acting, participating in the actions of civil disobedience. And through these days, many new leaders appears among these young people. And even when Nikol Pashinyan and his close friends were detained, new leaders appeared immediately, and the rallies were still very crowded.
I want to ask you a side point again before we get back on track. The freedom of assembly issue is arguable. Isn't it true that if the people who wanted to get together were 100 in one of the university halls, it would never have happened. Nobody would have given them space. But the minute those numbers become unmanageable, then freedom of assembly kicks in, no?
I mean, it depends. Sometimes even small
gatherings?
Small gatherings were successful, and we had such experience with the environmental movement, yeah, and several others. So anyway,
so
of course it was limited.
Okay.
But comparing to many other countries, this tradition exists in Armenia. When we are unhappy with something, we go to the streets and we protest. I mean, this is deep in all our hearts and minds.
So back to April 25.
That's until April 25. So the target, in fact, changed from personally Serge Sargsyan to the whole system, to the Republican Party and the government in general.
Did the target change, or did the priorities just move down? Because Nikol had 3 goals at the beginning. Nikol Pashinyan, the leader of the protesters, right? He said the removal of...
This was his plan. This was his plan, but we have to, I think we have to make distinction between his own plans and what were in the heads of the people. I think initially, if there would not be a target with concrete name Serge Sargsyan, maybe not so many people would come. But since specifically against Serge Sargsyan we had very negative moods, very negative opinions, many people joined the protest during the days. But then, during these days, there was a process of, I think, political education. And I would say these young people probably would need 1-2 years courses of political sciences to understand that much as they understand during these few days. And they understood that replacing just one person is not resolving the problem. Change of a face is not changing the essence of the system. And I think this was very accurately and consistently communicated by Nikol Pashinyan and other leaders of the movement, and they succeeded. They succeeded even after 1-day break on April 24, reinitiate the protest movements, and even on April 25 we had even more energetic process. So I think this was really a very good process of political education which brought its results.
Except a lot of people say he got what he wanted. He should not have gone back to the street on the 25th.
Yes, I think this was even in social networks, which were a very important platform and space for the debates. You could see many people saying, yeah, okay, Karen Karapetyan is an acceptable person, maybe he is even better.
Acting Prime Minister.
Maybe he's even better as Prime Minister than Nikol Pashinyan. We saw many such opinions. But still, majority of young people, as I said, they were so much already educated during that days that they understood that nothing will change, or even things could become worse than they were before. Because anyway, this was process of revolution. And political science say that if after revolution, counter-revolution comes, then it could be even worse than before the revolution. And I think maybe not in these specific terms, not in these specific definitions, but the idea was rooted in the minds of the people, and that is why we see that every day, as much as active protesters would be needed for the process, they will come.
Could the government, headed by the acting Prime Minister, Karen Karapetyan, have done something, said something to prevent April 25 and the return to the street?
No, I don't think he will be trusted. And he even did not make that attempt, because if he would promise, let's say, very concrete steps to fight corruption, to eliminate monopolization of economy, this could be a negative sign for his own allies. And he had to be very cautious about this, because in these days he needed support of oligarchy, he needed support of privileged, very small part of Armenian society. That is why he, as many years before also our government, he was relying first of all on support not of the people, of ordinary citizens, but of those people who felt that they are owners of this country.
When Nikol Pashinyan, okay, he called for resignation of Serge Sarkisyan, got the resignation of Serge Sarkisyan. Second call that the people's candidate be selected as interim prime minister, and then to go to special elections, snap elections. So step two, the people's candidate for acting interim prime minister. How does that happen in Nikol Pashinyan's and the protesters' minds? Is it people raising their hand in the street?
I mean, this was so clear for participants of the protest that to ensure final success, eventual success of the whole thing, they need some proxy. They need someone who they trust. And irrespective of what are professional capacities of Nikol Pashinyan, he's the only one who has sufficient political will to take the process to the end. And this was not arguable by anyone.
But there's a parliament that can vote.
So the difference of Armenian revolution and why it is velvet and not with any other definition, that the pressure of the street is just one component. But the next component of velvet revolution is that we keep all constitutional norms, we keep all state institutions, just we make them know what is the opinion of the street, what is the opinion of the people, and irrespective of what are their interests, they have to respect this will. They do not have any other choice. And that is why the role of the street or revolution cannot be replaced by anything else, whatever state or democratic institution.
So what you described in political science terms,
yeah, democratic institutions have just to legitimize and put into constitutional bed what is happening in the country, what is happening in the society.
In other words, just like in other countries, in the West and elsewhere, when popular opinion changes on various issues, from war to abortion or whatever, the people in the legislative bodies adopt laws that reflect popular opinion. So what you're saying
and
is...
make elections according to
and do
popular
elections, get elected or get kicked out. So what you're saying is the expectation, when people say it has to be the people's candidate, is that the sentiment of the people on the street will be heeded, listened to, and reflected in the vote in Parliament, yeah, regardless of who's voting.
Yeah, yeah. This should be a pressure which cannot be resisted by anyone. Of course, if we would have, let's say, democratic tradition, this would not be needed. I think in all previous processes, elections, decision-making processes, this could happen. But we did not have that. We had complete ignorance, complete undermining by the leadership, what people are thinking. And through different manipulations with elections, with, let's say, discussions about legislation, they were just cheating everyone. They were manipulating everyone. So after this was accumulated in the level, and especially during recent months, we saw the process how through laws the consolidated autocratic regime is deepening in Armenia. And I would even say that this was the worst option of consolidated autocracy, because in some other countries there is at least responsible consolidated autocracy. Okay,
responsive
I'm taking
as well.
and responsive and responsible. Yes, I'm taking the power, but I promise that I will develop the country, that I will make decisions that are in the interest of all our society. But our consolidated autocracy was intended to only resolve things that are in their own personal interest, but not at all in the interest of the population. That is why I think Armenian society had no other way than choose this revolutionary way to achieve their goals.
There you go. Thank you for taking part in these discussions that are going to help all of us understand what is happening in order for us to be able to understand and perhaps contribute to what is going to happen next. I've been speaking with Boris Navasardyan, who's president of the Yerevan Press Club and also civic activist, civil member of and developer of civil society in Armenia for several decades. Thank you for following us on CiviLNet. Stay tuned for more.